If your digital paintings look like this, but you would much rather have them look something like this, you are probably making some of the most common digital art mistakes. So let's figure them out and learn how to fix them. Number 1. Not enough contrast. This has to be one of the most common beginner problems. Artists often end up with muddy looking colors that don't really look good at all. It makes your painting look kinda grayish. The solution? Increase the contrast. I think the problem stems from using too many colors in the color dead zone. Yes, I just made the term up. But to avoid the muddy look, I feel you need to use some very bright or dark tones or some very saturated tones in your painting. If you have this problem, compare your art to that of a professional artist that you like, side by side. Does yours look muddy? Then it's probably a good idea to use a little bit more variety in your values. Make your bright tones a bit brighter and your dark tones a bit darker. Be careful though, or you will end up with problem number 2. Too much contrast. Contrast is a fundamental principle of art that can make your paintings look very appealing. But you can also use too much contrast. It can overtax the eyes of the viewer and make your painting look unaesthetic. The solution is to use targeted contrast. But what is the right amount of contrast? It depends on many factors. First and foremost, the lighting situation. A bright light, like the sun, leads to high contrast, while a soft light creates less contrast in your shading. But maybe that's the specific look you want to achieve with your painting. There's no definitive answer here. But like I said, I think it's generally a good idea to use at least some contrast in your art and avoid using too many gray tones. Number 3. Too much smudging or using only soft brushes. Another reason your digital art looks bad is the overuse of the smudge tool and soft brushes. Just like the dodge and burn tools, these ones seem like a shortcut for quick and easy shading. You just draw a lit area and a shadowed area and smudge away to easily create a smooth transition between them. Or you just use a soft brush from the get-go and create your gradients that way. The problem is that it makes everything look soft and too perfect. Also, just using soft brushes for everything leads to a lack of edges. Everything becomes blurred and the whole painting lacks focus. The solution? Avoid the smudge tool and combine hard and soft brushes. In this version of my orc painting, I used only a basic hard brush. No smudging. The solution to this is twofold. First, you should avoid the smudge tool. What's a better way to create gradients between dark and bright areas? Try blending colors with a hard brush for a change. I'll make a dedicated video on this technique soon. If you don't push it too far, this method will make your picture look more painterly compared to using the smudge tool or soft brushes. The second solution is trying to use both hard and soft brushes. This way you get the best of both worlds. Soft transitions, but enough clearly defined hard edges. Quick note here, I offer personal coaching sessions for digital painting. Just hit the link below if you're interested. Number 4. Using the wrong brush size. Many people are unsure which brush size to use. This can lead to a whole host of problems. If you just use small brushes, everything will look sketchy. There will be too many little dots and lines everywhere. Small details that aren't really helpful but just overtax the eye. In addition, everything will take a lot longer to paint. It just takes more time to finish a painting with a small brush. Hence, the general advice is often to use bigger brushes. But if you just use big brushes, everything will look blocky and undefined. It's a good practice at the start of a painting, but at some point you need to refine everything to get your painting out of the early stages. The solution is to use big and small brushes in the right situations. The best practice is to use big and small brushes when each is most appropriate. Big brushes are very useful in the early stage of a painting. They can be used to create little preliminary thumbnails, and they help you lay down paint quickly until you get the general colors and values right. Small brushes are needed as soon as your painting leaves the blocking phase. You need them for small refinements and for the addition of details. Otherwise your painting will never look finished. In other words, make your brush as big as possible but as small as needed. Number 5 is too much saturation. Digital art beginners sometimes tend to oversaturate colors. They just think of the base color of objects and the natural tendency is to pick a bright and very saturated one. For lighting and shading, they just add white or black. Unfortunately, there's much more to shading than that. Light and shadow areas have different color nuances and aren't just brighter or darker variants of the base color most of the time. Furthermore, every color is affected by the colors surrounding it. This is the same orange color, looking dark or bright depending on the color surrounding it. If you paint everything super saturated, your digital artwork will look bad and unpleasant to the eye. The painting will also have no focal point because everything in it screams, "Look at me!" The solution is to use saturated colors in moderation. This version of the painting distributes the saturation better. It uses the most saturated colors in the midtones and highlights and introduces some color nuances. Don't make every color very intense, or you will have too many competing elements. Instead, use saturation where it's appropriate. The most saturated colors should be used in the areas of your painting that you want to stand out. Final tip: avoid the very bright and saturated colors. Try to stay away from the very intense colors. Use them deliberately and only when needed. Number 6 is Colorizing Grayscale. Now, this is a controversial one, but I think Colorizing Grayscale is not as easy as it sounds. It's a common approach of beginners and the idea is simple. You try to separate the lighting and shading process from the base colors of the painting. If you follow this route, you first paint a grayscale version of your artwork and then just add colors. But it's not as simple as it seems to be. Often the brightness values don't match. If you paint a grayscale image in a way that looks good in grayscale, you will have to use a good amount of contrast. But then the bright areas will often be too bright and the dark areas too dark for colorizing, because the base colors have an inherent difference in brightness. Yellow is always brighter than purple, for example. Just look at what happens with the color wheel if you convert it to grayscale. Can you see it? The colors all have a different brightness. That's why the colors in a colorized grayscale variant often look wrong. The brightness is too high or too low for the intended outcome. Let's use yellow as an example again. This doesn't really look like a nice yellow ball. The bright spots are too bright and the dark ones too dark. In this case, you would have to paint the whole ball in a more even gray tone to make it work. The lights and shadows would need to be closer in value. This wouldn't look good in grayscale though, defeating the purpose of the method. Another problem is choosing the right blending mode. Every blending mode delivers a different result. Let's take a look at my painting from above with 2 other blending modes. Here it is with the overlay blending mode, and here it is with the soft light blending mode. Beyond that, not only picking another blending mode changes the outcome. Choosing a different color for painting on the color layer does so too. In the end, I feel like it's pretty much impossible to choose the perfect colors right from the start, without the need to do profound color corrections later on. The solution? Don't colorize grayscale images. There, I said it. Just don't do it. If you want to paint a grayscale painting, paint a grayscale painting. But if you want to create a colorful artwork, use colors right from the start. This way you will improve faster at using colors too. And yes, I'm aware that colorizing grayscale paintings can work. Even some professional artists do it. But I don't think it's a great idea for beginners because the technique itself requires a lot of knowledge and a lot of trial and error. Mistake number 7, overuse of textures and custom brushes. Simply put, too much texture can quickly make your digital paintings look ugly. I get it. Especially to a new digital artist, it's promising and exciting to be able to add texture to a painting immediately and easily. Applied in moderation, it can be effective and look good. But most of the time you will probably end up with something that looks photoshopped and fake. There will be too many details that distract the eye. Custom brushes are like gimmicks. While they are nice in theory, they can quickly detract attention from the basics. Let's say you want to paint a wooden plank. You could go ahead and just add a wood texture to a basic painting. But that's not painting. That's basically digital compositing. Then you could choose a texture brush with a random texture that somewhat resembles wood and lay down a few strokes. That looks alright at best. Both methods are like the easy way out and won't really improve your painting skills in the long run. If you want to use custom brushes with textures, use them sparingly. Here's an example of the wood plank from above, just painted by hand. Doesn't that look better to you? I think it does. Mistake number 8 is the overuse of layers. Can you actually overuse layers? Yes, by simply using too many of them. Often beginners love layers. And it's okay, they can be a useful tool, but they can also hamper the painting process. You add one layer, then another, and another, and sooner or later it looks like this. The result is that every object or character in your scene has two perfect edges. The elements often don't integrate into the scene organically anymore. The solution is try painting everything on one layer. Just one layer? Isn't that a bit extreme? Maybe, but after all, that's basically what traditional painters do the whole time. And it might make digital painting feel a bit more like, well, painting. Try it. If you want to use layers though, how do you know if you have too many of them? Simple. If you have to think about which layer you are on before every stroke, you have too many layers. If you feel like your painting is ruined because you've accidentally painted on the wrong layer for some time, you have too many layers. I actually find painting everything on one layer quite liberating. You can just paint instead of thinking about the technical things all the time. And if something goes wrong, you just paint over it. So now that you know all these mistakes, what should you actually do to create awesome digital art? For that, I recommend checking out my beginner guide on rendering right here. Thanks for watching.